Welcome back to our second forum tonight. So my name is Janet Ott, and I will be your moderator tonight, and we'll be listening to the Bellingham City Council candidates. A reminder that the land we stand on is the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Lummi and Nooksack people, the original inhabitants of Washington's northernmost coast and southern British Columbia. Since time immemorial, they've celebrated and cared for their land and waters to perpetuate their way of life. Please join me in deep gratitude for their ongoing wisdom, guidance, as we take a moment to honor their ancestors and to acknowledge the past, present, and future Lummi and Nooksack people as the original inhabitants of this land. Our media partners tonight are the Salish Current, the Northern Light, the Linden Tribune, KMRE 88.3 FM Community Radio, and Bellingham TV. We thank them most sincerely for their support. Those who cannot watch tonight can catch the forums through links on our website. Founded in 1920, the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that encourages informed and active participation of citizens in government. To that end, it works to acquaint people with their candidates, to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and to influence public policy through education and advocacy. The League never endorses a candidate or a party. Membership is open to both men and women, 16 years and older, and we cordially invite you, actually we strongly invite you to join us. We always say democracy is not a spectator sport. So let's get started. Our second forum tonight is for candidates who are running for Bellingham City Council. There are 4 seats on the ballot this fall. They are wards 1, 3, 5, and an at-large position. Lisa Anderson is running unopposed for Ward 5 and was not included in our lineup tonight. There are 2 candidates for each of the other seats, so please let me introduce you. For Ward 1, we have Eamonn Collins and Hannah Stone. For Ward 3, we have Liz Darrow and Daniel Hammill. And for our at-large position, we have Jace Cotton and Russ Whidbee. The City of Bellingham Council is the legislative body for the city, responsible for setting public policies, adopting long-range plans, approving the budget and taxes, and passing laws. Council members are engaged in the community and responsive to constituent concerns. Terms are for 4 years, except for the at-large position, which is a 2-year term. We will follow some specific rules for this forum tonight. There will be no opening statements. Instead, the introductory question is tailored to elicit responses consistent with an opening statement. Candidates will have 1.5 minutes to respond to each question, and will make a 1-minute closing statement at the end. The order of questions and closing statements is alphabetically by seat. For fairness, this order is going to be rotated. Each candidate has a challenge card. So candidates may use this card to challenge or rebut their opponent's response. The challenging candidate will only have 30 seconds to state the challenge, and their opponent will have 30 seconds to respond. Each candidate may only use your challenge card once. So we have 2 timers tonight, Michelle Kopcha and Carol Como sitting over there, and they will be tracking the time. So the timers will flash you a yellow sign when you have 15 seconds left and a red sign to signal when your time is up. If you continue, a bell will ring. And that really means stop, please, right now. And then I will say something. So we ask that the candidates be respectful for the time allotted due to the limited amount of time that we have and our desire to include as many questions as possible. So members of the public were able to submit questions through the League of Women Voters website up until today. These questions were screened to ensure they were not duplicates and were appropriately addressed to both candidates. So I have a few directions for the audience tonight. I'd like you to remind you that to hold your applause until the very conclusion of this forum. And we encourage you also to provide written questions for the candidates. Questions you submit will be asked of both candidates for each position. So we have ushers here tonight that are available to pick up your questions. So ushers, raise your hand, and they will bring them down to the screeners down here behind me. Questions will be screened by our league member and chair, Robin Barker. She will be screening for legibility and clarity and to avoid duplication. So I'm going to go. So to begin tonight, candidate Collins will go first. And after the start, we will rotate which candidate responds to questions first. So with the rules covered, let's get started. Timers, you ready? Okay. Here's question number 1. What is a quality that distinguishes you from your opponent that would make you a really effective council member? So again, we're going to start with candidate Collins.
I guess I would say adaptability. As a teacher, I have to come up with 20 different ways to make complex science ideas make sense to 20 different adolescent brains. But I want to apply that skill to I think the biggest challenge we face is the lack of affordable housing in Bellingham. It's destabilizing our community and compounding the other challenges we face, from homelessness to climate change. I serve as a trustee of the Colshan Community Land Trust, a nonprofit that builds affordable homes in Bellingham. And our projects face uncertainty and excruciatingly slow timelines because of regulatory barriers that the city has repeatedly identified in published plans. When we have a project that is delayed by a year because single-family zoning doesn't allow us to build the number of homes we need to make them affordable to our buyers, or delayed another 6 to 9 months as we wait to appear before a hearing examiner because the way we clustered the homes doesn't meet minimum lot size requirements. Those have real costs as interest rates go up and construction costs rise, and there's an opportunity cost for the people that could be living there. Bellingham's 2018 consolidated plan identified single-family zoning, minimum lot size requirements, and restrictions on infill development as the barriers preventing affordable housing. And we continue to face those barriers 5 years later because our leaders have not removed them.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Stone, your response, please.
Thank you. Good evening. So I think in focusing on what I'm going to bring to the council and sort of those attributes and assets, I think of them in a couple of different ways. One, as a mother. So I'm a mother of 2 children who are 15 and 18. One just graduated from high school, headed off to college. And thinking about the importance of the decisions that we're making today, right? My mother's also facing retirement on a fixed income, a lifelong renter here in Bellingham. So the decisions that we're making here as a council and as a community really matter to me personally, as well as to all of you. And so I think that keeps me grounded in the work and the really the implications of the work and the decisions that we make today, and how that's going to develop what the future of Bellingham looks like. Secondly, being an attorney, I'm in private practice as an immigration attorney, and sometimes that can be frustrating when, as an attorney, right, and a question's posed, you say, well, it depends. And a lot of times the response is it depends because it does depend. It depends on lots of different factors and details, and I always say that the details really matter in the decisions that we're making as a council and as a city. Those details really are imperative. And so as an attorney, looking at different issues from all angles, and also being an analytical thinker, and really trying to dig into all of the different pros and cons to decisions that we make, and looking at the possible unintended consequences as well as of our decisions. So really taking this work incredibly seriously.
Thank you. Candidate Darrow, your response, please.
Yes, I think the answer to this question is in part of Janet's definition of the role, in which she said that council members are engaged in the community and responsive to their constituents. I'm a community organizer. I have lived and worked in Bellingham for 24 years. I'm the co-chair of my neighborhood association. I've served that role for 9 years. I'm the elected precinct committee officer of precinct 238, and I'm the legislative advocate for community-to-community development, where I work on policy to improve the lives of immigrants and farm workers and their families. So in all of these roles, what's most important to me is the people who I work with and bringing the priorities and needs of all people into decision-making spaces. I think that's something that we're missing right now in Ward 3. I know that at the Lettered Streets Neighborhood Association, we rarely can get the attention of our representative. And I think it's just so deeply important to participatory democracy that representatives are listening. They're bringing those ideas, like I said, into decision-making spaces, and then they're checking back in with the community. It really should be more of a revolving door than a closed door. And so what motivates me and sets me apart is that I know people, I know how to work with people, and there's nothing that I love better than this process, especially the run-up to an election where we're talking with everybody and learning from all neighborhoods, because as you know, in Bellingham, everyone votes for every ward. And so that makes us responsible to 100,000 people, which is a huge job. And I believe that you deserve someone to truly represent you and be accountable to you.
Thank you. Candidate Hammill, your response, please.
Yeah, thanks for having us all tonight. I definitely appreciate being here. To answer your question, experience matters. So I have sat in this seat, I was here last night until 9:30, listening to the testimony of folks who came to the chamber here. So I've been on city council for 8.5 years. I'm in my 9th year. I have started more programs and passed more legislation than any other council member. In fact, all the other council members combined. I co-founded the LEAD program, the GRACE program, the alternate response program. I'm responsible for 2 major housing levies, including the Bellingham Home Fund, which I started before I was on city council. I was a founding member of the Whatcom Racial Equity Commission Development Board. I have served on over 30 boards and commissions. I've lived here for 34 years. My wife, Kelly Bashaw, has served on Bellingham School Board for 16 years. We have a service ethic in our household. We believe deeply in Bellingham, and we care about it, and we want to make sure that we contribute to it. And we are at an inflection point in our community with an emerging fentanyl crisis, with a homelessness crisis that is out of control, and an affordable housing crisis for working families. And I have plans for all of those things to continue on into the future. And experience is the key, and those relationships with state legislators, legislators, with county council members and city council members is the thing that's going to move Bellingham forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Candidate Cotton, your response, please.
Again, my name is Jace Cotton, running for the at-large position. The greatest quality I can bring to this role is the spirit of an organizer, and I'm lucky to have worked with many of the people in this room to do some amazing things in this community, flipping the 42nd legislative district, getting every vote counted to pass the Healthy Children's Fund, and this year getting 2 initiatives on the ballot that will protect renters who are most vulnerable to losing their housing in this community and to lift up low-wage workers who are falling behind. As an organizer, I know that there are experts in our community on every single subject, and it just takes someone with a theory of change about how we get that expertise translated into policy that is implemented well. And when I came up to Bellingham, I lived in my car because I didn't want more student debt, and that's how expensive rental housing was. And I've seen this community only grow more unaffordable. Knocking all those doors, I talked to parents who were taking on second jobs to afford childcare, people concerned about the trajectory of our community, or just last year we saw a 27% increase in the number of homeless people on our streets. And I believe it's time for some younger, bolder leadership on these issues. And thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Candidate Whidbee, your response, please.
Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for having us here tonight, Legal Women Voters. My name is Russ Whidbee. I'm running for City Council at Large. And the thing that I bring that may be different is experience, service, leadership, collaboration, and then wrap that all up into financial management and budgeting skills. I think our city council would benefit from having me on board. Like Dan, I am used to sitting in this room because I'm one of your 7 planning commissioners, but I usually sit on that side when Eamonn is. One of the things that I'm excited about is that I bring the key skill of collaboration and being a bridge builder. I've served on the Bellingham Technical College Foundation for the last 13 years and have the distinguishing, they call it emeritus. I think it's just a way of saying, we don't want you to leave. So please stay with us. I've served on the BOE. Some of you may not know what that is, but that is called the Board of Equalization for Whatcom County, where you hear real estate appeals from some of our fellow neighbors saying maybe their real estate taxes are a little bit too high. And you have to be fair and impartial and listen to that. And then come up with something that says, okay, I've heard you, now you make a decision to move that to the state or not. So the thing I can bring is collaboration, bridge building with many community members and leaders in this county because I know them. I've been here 43 years, and that makes a difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, question number 2. So this is a chance for you to use your imagination. If you had the money and the time and the legal authority, what problem would you solve in our city first? And we'll start with candidate Hammill.
Thanks. Well, I think there are a couple of issues that are tied together. Homelessness is one thing that's super visible, but I think that's being fueled by the fentanyl crisis. So last night we heard testimony from people who live out at Tollwood next to Walmart, and this afternoon I drove out there and talked with some outreach workers that do outreach to the camp that's back there. And we have way too many people that are experiencing homelessness in our community. It's fueled by the lack of affordable housing. We know that when housing costs go up, homelessness also goes up by about 9% in urban areas, over 30% in rural areas. So I think that's got to be the key, is to get people housed and stabilized, and then provide services for those that need them. And that could be mental health services, it could be substance use disorder services, but we have to get our quote-unquote house in order when it comes to housing in Bellingham. We have one kid per classroom in the Bellingham School District that is experiencing homelessness, and that can't be. You can't do your homework in the back of a car or in a shelter. So we need to get that situation figured out. So homelessness and attendant needs for mental health and substance use disorder.
Thank you. Candidate Darrow, your response, please.
Yes, I don't disagree that houselessness is, and housing affordability in general is our greatest challenge right now in Bellingham. And I do want to say that unfortunately our community lost another community member at that camp that Hammill referenced that he visited today. So we are in a huge crisis, and it's a crisis of trauma, and it's a crisis of economic scarcity, and it's a crisis of imagination. So if I had the money and the time and the legal authority, I would immediately solve our housing crisis. And I have worked with good people who are in this room and in this community on a housing platform called the Big Lift, because it doesn't have to be imaginary in order for us to use our imaginations. We can provide shelter for every person in this community. We have the resources to do it, we have the tools to do it, and what has failed us thus far is political will. And so I think that what we need is bold action at City Council, but we also need follow-through. A lot of what we do looks great on paper, and then when it comes into practice, we're just not seeing results. That's why we have the highest homeless count ever in Bellingham right now. That's why our young people aren't able to rent apartments and they have to live in their cars. It's because we have a lot of good ideas and we're just not implementing and following through on them. And that doesn't cost as much money as you would think. And so those things we can get moving on right away, and then when we have more of that money and legal authority and time that you speak of, we can do a whole lot more. But we have tools to solve a lot of those problems right now. We just need to use them.
Thank you. Candidate Whidbee, your response, please.
Thank you. Well, you're talking about imagination, imagining. One of the things I want to imagine in bringing back is something called the PDA, which I spoke about at South Hill Forum. The PDA is a public development authority, which was started by my friend and fellow student, but now former Mayor Dan Pike, started it back in 2008. We had the PDA from 2008 to 2014. And one of the things I think that we could do is imagine it coming back. In other words, recycling it to come back. Because that PDA could do wonderful things in the form of building affordable housing without the profit motive. It could build affordable housing without the profit motive. The other thing it could do is, imagine this, working with some of our nonprofits, like Colchian Community Land Trust, which I think gives equity to the homeowners that come into their program. But I see it as equity for those folks who look like me, those who may be marginalized and who've never had a home. So I see that as equity squared. And then the last thing it could do is work with our developers here in Bellingham, like a Pete Dawson of Boston Construction, or like a Garrett O'Brien, who really want to support affordable housing in Bellingham. We just have to have the political will to work with them, whether through inclusionary or not. So,
Okay,
thank you.
you. Candidate Cotton, your response, please.
Montgomery County, Maryland has a public social housing developer, which is a little bit different than the PDA that we had a few years ago. And its model primarily roots itself in the belief that everybody is entitled to a stable, permanently affordable housing. And through mixed income development, it's been able to scale remarkably fast in providing a non-market solution to a huge gap in our community's needs. And we know that 76% of the housing we need to be building right now needs to be affordable to those making below 120% of the area median income. We just really need to be investing in non-market rate affordable housing. And so that's one option. I love the idea of PDA, and I'm really grateful for Russ for continuing to beat that drum. But also we need to be investing in all of our nonprofit housing developers and empowering them to build more housing now. We need immediately to get them that earned density increase so that they can build more densely with equity, driven models right in every neighborhood. We deserve for our neighbors to have the stability that makes our community thrive. And so those are a few of the things that I would wave my magic wand to do right now.
Okay, thank you. So your response, please, Candidate Stone.
Thank you. If I had a magic wand, I think about my work as an immigration attorney and really valuing just sort of counting our blessings. And right now, our community is really hurting. And I think about it, when our son was younger, he'd had a really hard week, and he's like, "Mom, you always say it can always be worse." And like, does that even apply to me anymore? Because in all fairness, it was an extremely hard week for him in many respects. But I'd said, you know what, you have a roof over your head, food on your table, and a family that loves you. So yes, it can be a whole lot worse. And unfortunately, right now in our community, what we're seeing are many people suffering because they're lacking one, two, or all three of those. And so if I had that magic wand, it would be, a stabilization for our community to ensure that housing is not seen as a commodity, but it is something that every member of our community has, as well as food on their table. And the third, thinking about community and place building, the fentanyl crisis right now, as well as, mental health struggles and others, people really needing a sense of place when we think about community centers, senior centers, as well as just safe places, right, that address equity issues and needs in our community to ensure that everyone has a good launching point, right? And from there, everything else is sort of is a benefit, thinking about, good jobs and the environment and other things, but I would start there.
Okay, thank you. So, Candidate Collins, your response, please.
Yeah, if we're being imaginative here, I would want to see 50% of the housing in Bellingham be permanently affordable to people making less than half of the area median income. This is a radical idea. Comes from my friend Paul Schisler, who I saw wrote a memo to the city about this in like 1991 or something like that. He's been pushing this for a very long time. If we had unlimited resources, we could actually do this pretty quickly. The city could buy existing kind of naturally occurring affordable housing. Those kind of rundown rental units that exist right now that landlords might not be investing in, they're probably planning at some point to kind of tear them down. We could be buying those and converting them into limited equity co-ops and actually giving the residents equity there. Every vacant lot right now in our city that is built for a single family home or for profit feels like a policy failure to me. And if we had unlimited funds, the city should be buying all those up and giving them to the great local nonprofit developers in our community to turn them into permanently affordable housing. We should facilitate the purchase of private owner-occupied homes. People who want to move their home into trust so that it's permanently affordable for generations that come after them. And we could be paying for deep energy retrofits for existing housing too.
Okay, thank you. So question number 3. There will be 2 citizen initiatives on the November ballot for Bellingham residents relating to tenants' rights and the minimum wage. How would you advise voters to vote and why? We'll start with candidate Cotton.
We're at a point of, I think, crisis in our community. And as voters this year, we get the opportunity to make a course correction. We looked at every other jurisdiction that has implemented a higher minimum wage, and we saw no negative impacts on employment levels, local prices, or business failure rates, but strong benefits to local economies and low-wage workers. In the pandemic, we saw that it was the people who stocked our groceries and cared for our loved ones who were doing the most vital work for our community, and they are still not catching up, right? Wages have increased by 20% in our city since 2000, right? But housing costs have went up 80%. And so this is the fundamental crisis we have to address. Initiative 2 is our opportunity to prevent increasing rates of homelessness on our streets, right? 68% of renting senior households are cost burdened, right? One of the fastest growing demographics on our streets. And what Initiative 2 will do is it will make sure that when landlords raise rents by a truly excessive amount, more than 8% in a single year, right? More than double the rate of the current rate of inflation, that doesn't lead to homelessness, so that everyone in our community can land on their feet. For when I think about Initiatives 1 and 2, I think about what our city council should be passing.
Thank you. Candidate Whidbee, your response, please.
I think in general, I understand where Jace is going with these initiatives, and he was involved with them, so I understand that. The thing I think about is, once again, coming back to my strong suit of collaboration. I guess I know it's citizen-driven. I would have loved to have seen that collaboration with City Council to bring it before them and work with them. It puts City Council in kind of an awkward position because from a legal standpoint, from what I understand, legally, they're kind of in a zone of just waiting to see. They can't really take a positive scenario. And so I think I would have liked to seen do more collaboration with City Council so that they could be on board fully and fund that and be a part of it and be experiencing it and not having so much issues from the legal, because they're being, I believe, advised that maybe some legalities are some concerns there. And so that's what I'm concerned about. And certainly if I'm on City Council, whether it's a citizens initiative or not, I want to be engaged in hearing that kind of conversation. So that's important to me. I think the other thing is, from what I'm understanding, that the 8%, I'm thinking logically, then landlords are probably just going to go up 7.5% or 7.99. So then we're at that critical mass where we're possibly having it still stagger up, and we haven't really solved the problem. So I just have some mixed concerns about it, to be honest with you.
Thank you. Candidate Collins, your response, please.
I'll be voting yes on both of the initiatives. I think Initiative 1 is just. I think Initiative 2 is clever. I understand sometimes on minimum wage, people say like, oh, well, you shouldn't really be able to make a living flipping burgers. I think is the frequent example that they go to. But if it's a job that exists and we want that service and we want those goods, I think you should be able to live in the community where you work. Initiative 2, I think it's a very it's a clever way of disincentivizing landlords from extreme rent increases. I hear what you're saying, and maybe they'll raise it 7.9%. But I routinely talk to voters at the door who say their rent went up 20-30% in the last year. So this feels like progress to me. I hope our state representatives will give us rent stabilization in the next couple of years. That's a really vital tool.
Thank you. Candidate Stone, your response, please.
Thank you. So Initiative 1, as was said, is to raise the minimum wage by $2, and Initiative 2 is regarding rental increases and rental relocation expenses to be paid by landlords if the increases go above 8%. I think this is going to the voters for a reason, because having some, being undecided, I will say even myself at this moment, I have not decided how I'm voting on these two initiatives. Similarly, coming before council, right? These came before council, and at that time, we were presented with the options of adopting them as is without any changes, or providing the voters with an alternative, at which point the voters would be presented with two separate initiatives and needing to decipher between, right, the two, but being presented with both to choose, or sending it to the voters. And so having heard from members of our community outlining the pros and cons of each, and some of it speculative about what would be the end result in our community, and how would that actually address the cost of living as well as stabilizing rent for members of our community. And so I think both of those are paramount issues that we need to address, but that can be addressed from different angles as well, even beyond these initiatives. And I would hope that with community initiatives that there is more collaboration between, again, that falls on the council as well, between the council and the community to help develop ideas like this and proposals for the best result possible.
Thank you. Candidate Darrow, your response, please.
Yes, so with Initiative 1, first of all, I do support both initiatives. With Initiative 1, research tells us that a living wage for a single person in Bellingham is $28 an hour. So raising the minimum wage $1 per hour per year for the next 2 years is barely even a floor that people can land on. It's just not enough to live here. And so in concert with that, I do support capping the rental increase at 8% or less per year. I'm very proud to be the only candidate who is endorsed by both the Whatcom County Association of Realtors and the Bellingham Tenants Union. And what that means is that we absolutely have to involve everyone in solving this crisis. So recently, Daylight Property Management, the Bellingham Tenants Union, and Jay Inslee had a meeting, and Daylight Property Management, which is pretty significant in our community, made a commitment to cap the rental raise at 3%. And they said they've done the numbers and they know they can function as a business with making that commitment to our community. So that is going to really help out folks who are renting, and it's not going to damage their business operations enough for them to say that they don't support this initiative. So those are the kind of solutions that when you're talking with all of the people and trying to problem solve from many angles and not just turning people away because you don't think that their ideas are good enough, you can come up with something that actually will be practical in the community. 3% is a lot better than 8%, and that was something that we got to by having those conversations. So yes, I do support it, and I think we can do even more in our community.
Thank you. Candidate Hammill, your response, please.
Yeah, so about 4.5 years ago, I led the city council on increasing the notification for rent increases from 30 days to 60 days, and also added in a source of income discrimination clause. So if you're on a VASH voucher, which is a Veterans Assistance Voucher, or Section 8, you can't be discriminated against because of your source of income. And so I was really happy to get that passed. I worked with the Bellingham Tenants Union on that for, and many others for about a year to get that across the line. And then earlier this year, I worked with Councilmember Holly Huthman to double that notification time from 60 to 120 days back in February. So we were out ahead of the initiatives well before they brought their ideas forward. I'm concerned about the legality of Initiative 2. We asked the questions of our attorney who sat in that seat right there and asked, what do we do on this one? And we had to go into executive session to discuss the issues around Initiative 2. And I'm very concerned about it being struck down because I don't think it's legal. As far as Initiative 1, the cost of living here for affordable housing, or even to get into housing, is way more than $17 or $18 or $19 per hour. So I don't know that it closes the gap. I think it's well intended, but I think that we need to look at the unintended consequences of what that means for our businesses.
Okay, thank you. Question number 5. Oh, I didn't see that. I'm sorry, candidate Darrow. You have 30 seconds to state your challenge.
Real quick, the 120 days was given 90 days to go into effect, which was a disaster for renters, and that was retaliation based on not checking in with landlords and property management on how that legislation would impact all of the people at the table. So not necessarily getting ahead of the initiatives there. And the second thing was, I lost it. Okay, that's it. I think in that legislative moment, it was an opportunity to say, how would this work for everybody and what will be the consequences? And that didn't happen.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Hammill, do you have a response to that challenge?
No.
Okay. Okay. So, Candidate Cotton, you want to challenge Candidate Whidbee?
Yes, if that's allowed.
Yes, go ahead. You have 30 seconds.
When we look at the last 2 years, Bellingham rents have increased by 22%, right? And for many renters, this is, it looked like 20, 30, 40, 50, 60% single-time rent increases. And it's true. We didn't pick the most radical, extreme possible rent cap, but we picked one that we thought could pass because progress is better than no protection at all. And with rising number of homeless people on our streets, I'll take some moderation. Thank you.
Candidate Whidbee, do you want to respond to that challenge?
My only thing I would say is, once again, it's all about collaboration. Once again, I'm going to say, I think just like Liz Darrow was saying, you came to an agreement with Daylight's properties, right? So to me, that's a better process, to come to some type of collaboration with the person or that organization and leaving, I would say, government process out of it. I think that we can come to some agreement and find middle ground and try to do it legally and just try to come to some sense of progress. So that's the only thing I would say in that regard.
Okay, thank you. So now question number 4. So there has been recently some controversy about our local hospitals' actions. What role could or should the city take to address these public concerns? And we'll start with candidate Stone.
So I think there are multiple avenues. So one, looking at competition, right, and bringing in, we have additional resources needed to address health concerns and needs and services here in our community. In addition, though, thinking about, some of our direct contact with local hospital has to do with, right, taxes, and what's been addressed is the tax exemption as a nonprofit, and how that impacts the work that's being done and how we could leverage that to perhaps receive additional services and address some of the gaps that we're seeing in our community, and wanting to see that as a way to perhaps hold the hospital accountable more. And what I would say is that I think it's again, when you have a broad city policy in place, that maybe provides an exemption, being sure that you're thinking about, right, what other entities in our community could be negatively impacted by that change. So if there's a specific problem that we're wanting to address, then I think that that really needs to be addressed in a collaborative way, right, and addressing what the community needs are. And some of that's going to take advocacy from all sides. So when we're thinking about the city administration as well as the council, looking at possible legislative action, but also the role for the community to advocate, because as a service provider in our community, there should be an obligation to those clients and patients who are being served as well.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Collins, your response, please.
Yeah, I know Skagit County has 100,000 fewer residents than Whatcom County, but they have 3 hospitals to our 1. That's because 2 of their hospitals were funded through the creation of public hospital districts. I think it's very healthy to have multiple options. When a reporter wrote a story about this a few weeks ago, and when he asked me about the issue of removing Peace Health's tax exemption, my response was, I would, as long as they are the only provider in town, I would be really nervous about doing anything that's going to destabilize them. I would very much like to bring in other providers, though. If I know this is something John Scanlon at the county level has been talking a lot about. If we someday have a public hospital district on the ballot, I will happily knock on doors for that. I think public health options are great and are often more responsive to patient needs. My wife is the pediatrician at the Lummi Tribal Health Center. She vastly prefers working there to a private provider. She feels like she gets a lot more time with her patients and doesn't face the same pressure to clock in billable procedures.
Okay, thank you. So candidate Hammill, your response, please.
Yeah, we always talk about how government's kind of like, long-term and slow-acting. I want to talk about something that's going to be happening relatively soon, and that is a 23-hour behavioral health crisis relief center that Representative Alicia Rule got us $9 million for in Whatcom County. We still have a few more $1 million to kind of bridge the gap on that. We are experiencing behavioral health crisis that is out of control in all the time that I've lived here, and that facility can help with immediate behavioral health crisis needs. Peace Health has what's called One Central, which is their behavioral health crisis center, but it can only house about a dozen people. And so this new center could bring in a lot more people, combine that with the Ann Deacon Center for Hope, which is currently in operation, which is a 32-bed facility, 16 beds for mental health illness, 16 beds for substance use disorder. And now we're talking about a campus of a place where people can go for that kind of respite. As far as the hospital districts, I think that's more of a county level thing. I think the city could be a collaborating partner in that, but I think that's more of a county and a state level issue.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Darrow, your response, please.
I absolutely support a public hospital district, whether it's a county issue or not. I think that the city council could collaborate and push harder on that. Councilmember Stone brought up community advocacy. I hear from people in the community all the time whose children can't get the affirming health care that they need because we have a religious, private, for-profit hospital, and that's all we have to offer. People who need abortion care services, people who need birth control, people who need trans-affirming services. There is no option for them here. So we're failing a good percentage of our population. We have youth in mental crisis who are on waiting lists for months, if not years. So for Peace Health to be holding a monopoly over our community's health is unacceptable to me. I absolutely don't support that. There's also a state exemption for St. Luke's, which hasn't been in operation up on Ellis Street for 6 years. So I think that one possible solution to that, and I have talked with some of the folks who work at Peace Health about this, perhaps instead of taking that $1 million a year at St. Luke's, that money could be put into housing there or something that will benefit our community there rather than just letting it sit and rot in that space and Peace Health benefiting from it. So I do agree that we don't want to extract resources from the only option that we have. I also think we just need more options, and I think we have the resources available to do it.
Thank you. Candidate Whidbee, your response, please.
I do like that aspect that Liz is talking about for just competition for Peace Health. Certainly, they're growing, but I think we need another possible option. I'd like the St. Luke's option. It was something that could balance out our healthcare system here in Bellingham. And I think also, if that's not the case, if it's not for healthcare, I certainly like it for affordable housing. So that's one of the things that I would think and have compassion about, effective compassion about. So that's why I'm kind of leaning towards it. So if not healthcare, then maybe we should look at it for affordable housing.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Cotton, your response, please.
I'm very grateful to John Scanlon at the county level for driving this conversation forward, and I'm very supportive of those explorations and will support those. I also think we have other great providers in our community, Unity Care, CMAR, Planned Parenthood, among others, that are the primary providers for many people in our community, and we should be supporting them to expand many of their services, especially some of those that they're most desperate for, including outpatient buprenorphine and methadone treatment. So I'm very supportive of this conversation, and I think it's long overdue as a community.
Thank you. Question number 5. The Port of Bellingham has a contract with ABC Recycling that has resulted in a significant amount of noise in the neighborhood. What would you recommend as a response? And we'll start with candidate Darrow.
If we could go back to the magic wand, I would have started back in time before that contract was approved for 15 years. I personally am kept up for 10 days every 4 months by that calamitous noise. It's way worse than the train, and it goes on all night. So that nobody consulted the people who live in this space about how they want their quality of life to be before approving that is a shame. And we're looking at a similar disaster coming to Marine Drive with the metal shredder if we let money be the thing that is most important. If we're talking about climate change, a just transition includes the community, and what do we want to see for our spaces? It also would include a closed-loop recycling system so that we're dealing with our own waste. So I think it's really disingenuous to say that we are boating in metal from somewhere else and processing it and boating it out, and somehow that's a green thing to do in our community. I disagree. And I think the thing to do in our community is to talk to people who live here. How do you want this to look? And how can we have a working waterfront that isn't causing all of this conflict and misery? And certainly, how can we stop passing the buck and saying that was the port's decision? When those of you who were here for the mayoral debate heard that the mayor and the city council sat right here and signed on to that plan for the waterfront. So there is a relationship there, but only when it's going well. When it's not going well, everybody wants to say, it wasn't me who made that decision. So I think we need more transparency and accountability around that.
Thank you. Candidate Hammill, your response, please.
Yeah, so yesterday the city council and the mayor discussed the noise or potential changes to the noise ordinance for, I don't know, probably half an hour, 45 minutes. And, you know, we're going back and forth on that and what we can do. So my concerns are there was no SEPA, there's no State Environmental Protection Act study that was conducted for that site for that use. There's a broader SEPA that was done, and I'm talking about the port property here. What I introduced at the under old and new business yesterday was something that to me is of even more concern, and that is the deposition of lead, zinc, and copper through open air trucks that are going through Bellingham and will be at a 40 trucks a day, going past residential, going past childcare, going past schools. What is the impact for that? So I did a deep dive with a Western Washington University environmental studies prof on Friday to try to get more information. You know, what does that look like? And so I'm very concerned about not just the noise, but also there's no safe exposure for lead. And so what does that look like for Bellingham, and what can Bellingham do? What is the regulatory authority that the city council has to say no to that? And so that's got to be part of the conversation as well.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Cotton, your response, please.
As an organizer, I believe organizing gets the goods, right? And this is an issue where in the next year, we're going to learn a lot more, especially through the new SEPA process. When it comes to concerns about noise, pollution, about air quality, about water runoff. These are profound issues, and as an organizer, I know how to be accountable to community, and also just not jump on a campaign bandwagon and quick and easy talking points, but to say that we can dig into this together and find real solutions that are rooted in the best science, and that we lean on the many environmental experts we have in our community who have been following this very closely. So I am grateful for the fact that we are really well ahead of this issue, and I think our voices are going to have a lot of influence in the process.
Thank you. Candidate Whidbee, your response, please.
One of the things I think about when we first heard about this was once again in the South Hill Forum, and one of the leaders and at the South Hill Neighborhood Association, I think he's the president, Scott Jones, and also fellow planning commissioner, has led the charge on this. I want to give him kudos for that. The key thing is that at that time, we didn't know a lot about this ABC recycling. But the key thing I pointed out was I was concerned that the only, you might say, level of concern, or you might say concern we have from a jurisdictional standpoint from the city, was the noise ordinance. And so I'm glad to hear that Dan is mentioning about the aspect that they're revisiting that, because I think that's really where we need to really focus, is the noise ordinance, about this going till 3 o'clock in the morning. I mean, to me, that's just too much. I would think that 10 o'clock, just like other organizations and companies, this has got to stop. So that's where I would think that we would have the most strength. And it's good to hear other things going on from an environmental standpoint, but I think that's where the city has the most strength in that standpoint. And I don't know whether it's the biggest point we can make, but that's the one that came to me right away, that we could maybe slow this down, or I don't even know if we could stop it, but certainly we can at least talk about it, have conversations with the port on that concern. So.
Okay, thank you. So Candidate Collins, your response, please.
I support the idea of a working waterfront. I don't want to see Bellingham's entire waterfront just be luxury condos, and I think that is an important value to preserve jobs there and jobs in the trades, good paying jobs. I don't think, from what I've heard, this project actually includes that many union jobs. I don't think it really sounds like an industry of the future. I'm more excited about the potential for a hydrogen plant to be coming to Whatcom County. I'm personally concerned about the metal shredder on Marine Drive. I drive by that every day on my way to school. That's not far from my house, and I'm definitely worried about the potential for air pollution as they're transporting these materials across Bellingham. And I know there's a lot of yet unanswered questions, and there's I don't know how much we can actually do about it at this point. I know the county council is trying to change the zoning of that particular site, so I'll be interested to watch where that goes. And then moving forward, I'm not sure what exactly the legal structures, the distinction between the city of Bellingham and the Port of Bellingham allow, but I'd like to see where there's opportunities for more notice and collaboration, because clearly port decisions do impact city residents.
Thank you. Candidate Stone, your response, please.
So this is certainly a good example of where, jurisdictions sort of collide or overlap. So thinking about the city and the county and the port, and obviously it impacting all of the residents right here in the area. I think it's important. I do support, as candidate Collins was mentioning, a working waterfront, and I think that we all envision that differently. And I was mentioning the other night that what's noise for one person might be a nuisance to someone else, and and vice versa, depending if you enjoy really loud rock music, that may be enjoyable to you, but it might be really disruptive to one of your neighbors. So ABC Recycling has been saying that they're trying to be a good neighbor, right? And I think what's really important is accountability to that point, and so that there have been some mitigation efforts. Whether or not that's enough is yet to be determined. I know that there was an announcement last night at our council meeting from Riley Sweeney that there had been negotiations, right, with the union longshoremen because some of the hours, right, was related to their shift work. And so there has been agreement with the union to reduce that to end at midnight, which obviously still is not the 10 o'clock, that we'd like to see with respect to quiet hours, but that is improvement. And so certainly looking at, what are the options with respect to noise ordinances. And I think as our density increases, what's really going to be imperative is that we make sure when you're looking at, the need for buffer zones and allowing for industry and residential to coexist, right? How does that happen responsibly so that we can all have a good quality of life here?
Thank you. Question number 6. Bellingham has taken steps to enhance the safety downtown. Are additional measures necessary? And if so, what do you propose? We'll start with candidate Whidbee.
Thank you. I think that public safety is one of my main platforms. In conversations with Chief Rebecca Mertzig, this is one we can agree on. We need the bike patrol back. I'd like to see that because that is an interaction with police that I think is a little more friendly than the patrol car scenario. I'd like to see police officers walking downtown again as they are. I know it's on an overtime basis, but I'd like to see police walking downtown. That also presents more of an interactive, neighborly kind of aspect to businesses downtown. And I think it makes people feel more comfortable in that regard. Certainly, I would like to see school resource officers back. And this was my wish list to her, and she agreed as long as the funding was there. And that's one of my things that once I'm on city council, hopefully we'll be working on that. So the key things I'd like to see downtown: bike patrol, police officers walking the beat again, and community policing. Those are very important, and school resource officers. I think those are very important, and I think that it would give a key notion that Bellingham is concerned for the safety of its citizens. So that's what I would like to see.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Cotton, your response, please.
And I live literally 2 blocks from here, so downtown is where I spend a good deal of my working and non-working hours, and there is significant work that we need to do to increase both the felt and real sense of safety for everyone downtown. And one of the things we need to do is have quicker response time when something is going wrong, especially I think expanding our alternative response teams, which are very cost effective, and also get at taking certain cases that are really just more appropriately handled that way off of other crisis responders' plates. The other thing we need to do is downtown is not safe to be a pedestrian or to walk, and especially with more and more people on our streets, our current traffic infrastructure downtown does not make sense. And that has been an issue that we have talked about for many, many years, and it's time we actually do something about it. We should make downtown a place where you want to walk and bike and feel safe, but it is well lit, and people beget safety, right? More eyes on the street beget safety for all of us. And so I think we need to double down on what makes downtown vibrant and act really, really quickly on all of the urgent issues that we'll be talking about today.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Stone, your response, please.
So there is a lot happening downtown, and it's actually been remarkable coming out of the pandemic how well we're doing in comparison. But I know that there are some, problems that still need to be addressed, and that there needs to be more action taken downtown. But I also hesitate to focus solely on downtown because a lot of the concerns, right, that are being highlighted, we're hearing from constituents throughout the city with similar concerns. And so the other thing is to put a spotlight on downtown and focus all efforts there, unless we're doing so in a very mindful and intentional way that's going to be addressing the underlying concerns and causes, and not just moving the problem out of downtown, but into the surrounding areas and around the city. I don't think we're going to be effective. And so really it's addressing, the immediate crisis of response times and engagement with the community, and also with, behaviors that are harmful to those maybe engaging the behavior, as well as other community members nearby. But having those additional services in our, in our community available, so that there are avenues to actually move that engagement into, treatment and hopefully some stabilization for those individuals. So I think between, the increase of foot patrols as well as, the ambassadors that are downtown, and the partnership with the Bellingham Downtown Partnership is really key to bolstering that support for downtown businesses and community members.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Collins, your response, please.
Yeah, that's a really excellent point, that this is not limited to downtown. I think, when we clear encampments and displace homeless folks without really having somewhere for them to go, we just disturb what level of stability and community they've managed to put together, and sort of scatter them throughout the city. I think, downtown business owners are rightly alarmed to find people overdosing on their doorstep. That is tragic, and it's outrageous. When I'm getting ice cream with my 3-year-old at Mallard, I struggle with how to explain to him, why there's a man shouting at things that aren't there. I think criminalization is the wrong tool. I don't think that's a very delicate tool for dealing with this. We need somewhere for these folks to go and get treatment. A 24/7 substance abuse treatment center. We really need a city-run, non-sectarian shelter. So there's more than one shelter option. There's a lot of barriers to going to a base camp or lighthouse mission. And I think also I appreciate what Jace talked about, that we need to find better ways to bring more life downtown. We need more public spaces. After we go to Mallard, I frequently walk out and realize there's not really anywhere to go. We need some public spaces.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Hammill, your response, please.
Yeah, so the City Council met with the mayor yesterday for probably an hour to discuss this with the Downtown Bellingham Partnership, and we talked about all the investments that we as a city are making in downtown. So about $1 million per year. So we have private security, we have the ambassador program, we have a graffiti abatement program, a beautification program. I think that we need to continue on with the foot patrol with our Bellingham Police Department. So I knock on a lot of doors and talk to a lot of voters, and public safety is like the number one issue every single time. I think that the funding a bike patrol and funding our neighborhood patrol officers would be beneficial to that as well. So last year, we were down well over a dozen officers. Now we're down about 8 officers. And those specialty units that make Bellingham sort of unique and reflect, I think, the values of Bellingham, the connection with our law enforcement community is challenged right now. So I would support bringing that back. I was the person that brought forward the alternate response team 3 years ago. I looked at communities across the country and brought that program into Bellingham, worked with the county health department, and now we have a nurse and a crisis responder that go to those behavioral health calls. Thanks.
Thank you. Candidate Darrow, your response, please.
One thing I think is really remarkable is when we talk about safety, we're really only talking about one side of the equation. And no one is less safe than people who live outside. In fact, we know that at least 64 people died from living outside last year, and that's just those that were counted. So it makes me really sad when we talk about increasing policing. We know that that's not working to get people housed. So I think you asked the question, what else should be done? We should house people. I mean, I think that putting base camp downtown, I've heard from business owners, they knew that people who got kicked out of base camp, or it was too full, or there's a no-sit zone all around base camp, folks are going to move all around in downtown. People without housing live here, so we have to look at them. We can't just push people around and say, well, now I feel safer because I'm not looking at poverty. So it makes me really sad when the solutions we talk about are centered around policing. And also, I will say about the alternative response team, I think it's a really good idea. And I've spoken to the workers who work there, and it's not well enough resourced, and they're not well enough trained, and they don't have the tools to solve this enormous problem. There was a presentation just today as part of Whatcom Housing Week about the partners who are all working on this, and the estimate is they can handle about 10% of the need that is there. So obviously, what more needs to be done is that we have to resource for housing, for mental health stability, and we have to support the good teams that are already out there trying to do the work.
Thank you. So question number 7. Bellingham is currently updating its comprehensive plan. What changes, if any, would you like to see to this 20-year policy document? And we'll start with candidate Collins.
So my first thought goes to that I think a long-term planning document like this, one that sets the vision, is the appropriate place to be bold about our underlying value. And this is where I know I use this in my answer about what would I do if I had infinite money and a magic wand. But it's not crazy to think that half of the housing in a city should be affordable to half of the people who live here. For the median income in Bellingham is about $60,000. Half of our homes need to be affordable to people earning less than half of the area median income. My concern about the comprehensive plan is that it might prevent our city from taking more urgent action. I don't want us to be saying like, we really shouldn't do anything about zoning right now. We shouldn't really do anything about setbacks right now. We need to do all that through the comprehensive plans. That's a long process, and this is a crisis. And in a crisis, speed and scale matter.
Thank you. Candidate Stone, your response, please.
So I think with respect to the comprehensive plan, this is really an opportunity, right, for our entire community. We've been sending out, right, there surveys and seeking input and engagement from the community because this is our plan, right, calling it the Bellingham plan for a reason, because this is a plan for our entire community to look at the next, 20 years and sort of the long-term goals. And so it's the balance between the short-term sort of crises that we've been talking about and need immediate attention, but also the reminder that we have to be really mindful in those decisions about, the chart that we're plotting for the future. And so I think right now needing to focus most heavily on the anticipated growth, right? Growth here in our area because it's a desirable place to live, as we all know, but also thinking about climate refugees and others moving to this area and the anticipation that our population is going to continue to grow. And so really needing to look at how we grow most responsibly to address, density as well as protection of our green spaces and open spaces and those things that make Bellingham such a high quality, place to live. So it's really going to need to be focusing on that balance between, again, density and quality of life.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Darrow, your response.
Yes, I think the primary focus that I think we should have on the comprehensive plan is the plan for the plan. And by that I mean it's not accessible. So calling it the Bellingham plan leaves out 45 of the 46 languages that are spoken in our school districts. It leaves out anybody who doesn't have internet access. And beyond that, even though community members might contribute to the comprehensive plan, where is the evidence that all of the good ideas that the community has are being implemented? So I think to have a long-term plan like that, that's making decisions for everyone who lives here, including climate refugees, most of whom are not going to speak English, are not going to have input into the shape of the future of our community. And so I think it's kind of an old way of doing things. I don't really support having a 20-year plan that's immovable, and I've had the experience of going to council with priorities from community members and being told, well, that's not in the comprehensive plan. So it's almost a way for people who are already on the inside of making the plan to keep people on the outside of the plan out. So I don't like that. I would like to see a plan that is truly comprehensive, and for that to happen, it's got to be in more languages. You've got to be able to interact with it in more ways than just the internet. We need to have people's movement assemblies where people bring their ideas and it's truly prioritized and you can see where it's implemented and where that commitment is.
Thank you. Candidate Hammill, your response, please.
Yeah, so at the last comprehensive plan update that we did, I think it was in 2015 or 16, I can't remember. If you look at that plan, it's H18 was the number, and basically the council directed the mayor's office and the administration to leave no stone unturned when it came to housing types. And so last session in Olympia, the House and the Senate passed House Bill 1110 and House Bill 1337. So 1110 is missing middle housing, so that's workforce housing, and 1337 is ADUs, basically. So we have opportunities here to accelerate those House bills into action even before the comp plan comes. We also need to talk about the UGAs. Which ones are we going to be bringing in on the north end of town, or are we going to bring in any? We need to talk about urban villages. We have Old Town right down the street here that is like a blank canvas. The waterfront's being built out very slowly. Barclay Village, a lot of housing going on there. We also need to talk about park equity and the distribution of parks within Bellingham. We have plenty on the south side. We don't have enough on the north side. And we need to have thorough discussions around bike ped infrastructure to encourage people to get out of their cars, onto their bikes. It seems like every third bike that I see is an e-bike now, so it seems like that's easier to ride your bike. So there's a lot going on there within the comp plan, and a lot of it can happen before the comp plan is there.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Cotton, your response, please.
I'm excited about form-based codes. This can allow us to have a inventory of pre-approved designs. This is something that is a win for builders and everyone eager to have more supply, and it's a win for people who are concerned about the aesthetics and coherency of their neighborhoods. And so we wouldn't be the first community to overhaul our code to adopt that new system, but I think it can actually really facilitate in this moment a lot of the other changes that some of which mandated at the state level that will be implemented over the next few years. And I think it's an opportunity for us as Bellingham to think long-term about what is the kind of community that we want to live in? What does it look like when you step out onto the street? What can you walk to? What can you bike to? This is, I think, the comp plan cycle to do it. So, thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Whidbee, your response, please.
I'm going to go in a different direction. I know I heard so many of my colleagues mention great things about the comp plan and UGAs and going out. I'm going to stay internal for a moment, and I'm going to get radical with it. I've scheduled meetings with President Sabah at Western Washington University. And what I'm going to be proposing to him and Leonard Jones, resident housing director, is looking at the opportunity for Western to start building housing over their parking lots. Start much like they have at Burnham Wood and Buchanan Towers, which we used to call Bucky Towers, so that they would be a kitchenette and stoves. And so to me, we've got that facility that used to be the drive-in. That's a lot of parking area. That could be underground parking in Western, because they have a wonderful regional university and they have the state, they could put up some state bonds. And let's look at some aspects, since we're talking about a long-term range plan, of residence housing right over that facility with underground parking. Now, some of you may say, well, that's just a dream, but I'm going to take Liz's wand away for a moment, and that's what I want to do as I begin having conversations with President Sabah and Leonard Jones concerning those issues. I think it's possible. I think it can be done. And I think it's within the realm that could free up a lot of housing in and around Seaholm Hill that could free up the vacancy for those renting and buying homes. So that's my radical plan and idea. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So after the fact, I'm just going to tell you, candidates, that that was the last question. So you now have an opportunity to make a 1-minute closing statement. So we're going to start with candidate Stone. Your closing statement, please.
Thank you very much. So good evening again. Thank you all for being here tonight and elevating the importance of our local elections. Again, my name is Hannah Stone, and I'm running for re-election to serve as the Ward 1 representative to the Bellingham City Council. So I've just completed my first term on the council. And I actually want to take this moment, though, to address the campaign process, which I know that most of us are probably exhausted at this point, right, in the campaign cycle. And I have to say that kudos to the league. I think this event was very well done. And I feel like, well, we'll hear from the community, but I feel like it might have offered the community a little bit more substance than other, forums that we go to. And so it's a plug to community members in the future that it would be great. We travel to all the neighborhood associations as well as different organizations to speak. And most of the time, these are large questions, right? Solve the housing crisis. And now you have 90 seconds to explain how you're going to do that, right? I don't feel like that's beneficial to the community. And so I'm hoping that organizations can collaborate to each pick a topic and have us speak more in depth in the future.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Collins, your closing statement, please.
I know it's easy to stand on the outside and criticize the people who are in the room making the decisions. It's easy to just say, yeah, you should be going faster. You should be doing more. I know maybe I sound naive or unreasonable when I say that. But before I returned to the classroom as a teacher, I spent 5 years working in the U.S. Senate and House of Representatives as an education policy advisor. I've written legislation. I've negotiated with stakeholders. I've stressed over the details of implementation, and I do think we can be doing more faster. I think our national government is not going to get any less dysfunctional, and I think a lot depends on how much we can accomplish locally in the next few years. I love teaching. I think I'm good at it, but I don't think I could be a good teacher and a good council member at the same time. So if I'm elected, this would be my one full-time job.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Hammill, your closing statement, please.
Yeah, thanks to the league for having us again. We appreciate this. I am running for re-election for my third term for Ward 3. I'm endorsed by several unions, including Bellingham-Whatcom Firefighters, Local 106, Northwest Washington Central Labor Council, AFL-CIO, the Teamsters, grocery workers, every non-uniformed employee that works for the city of Bellingham has endorsed me. I'm endorsed by the majority of Bellingham-based representatives in Olympia, the majority of Whatcom County Council, the majority of Bellingham City Council, the majority of Bellingham School Board, and dozens of community activists and stakeholders. I've delivered on democratic values since day one in office, and I will continue to do that when I'm reelected. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Darrow, your closing statement, please.
Thank you, Janet, and thanks everyone for being here late on a cold October evening. I love this part of the process, like I said earlier. I think participatory democracy is so important. In fact, when I'm not a candidate, I enjoy volunteering for the league because I think that this is where we do the good work. And so I really appreciate you all being here and listening and considering. It should never be an afterthought who you vote for and what you ask of your representatives once they're in office. So I look forward to you holding me accountable. I'm proud to be endorsed by the Lummi Nation, Representative Deborah Lekanoff, the 42nd Legislative Democrats. But more importantly, I'm really proud to be doing the good work of talking with people one-on-one. I personally have knocked more than 1,500 doors, and my campaign is going on 6,000 doors. This is the part that I love. We'll keep doing this work after I'm elected. I really think that what we need to do is bring the community back into this space. So I appreciate you doing that part tonight with me.
Thank you. Candidate Whidbee, your closing statement, please.
Once again, thank you very much for having us here tonight. I've appreciated it. I'm excited to be a part of this experience, and I'm looking forward to serving should the public vote for me. I want to say that public safety is very, very important to me, and certainly as a block watch captain for the last 20 years, I'm proud to be endorsed by the Bellingham Police Guild, even though I'm calling for civilian oversight by the Bellingham Fire Department, Firefighters 106, and by Local 1937 and Teamsters. And I could go on and on and on. But more importantly, what I want to say is I look forward to serving Bellingham. It's that service experience, and that's the commitment I give to you. I look forward to just being a part of BTC and doing creative things like breaking the cycle, where, number one, you put together two organizations to, like, the mission and Northwest Youth Services, and you say to them, if you send me 6 to 12 candidates, or we'll get them educated at BTC and we'll pay for it. Things like that.
Thank you
very much.
Candidate Cotton, your closing statement, please.
Thank you again to the League for this amazing event. And I'm really proud to be endorsed by some wonderful leaders in our community, including Senator Sharon Shoemake, Representatives Alex Rammel, Deborah Lekanoff, our county council members, Barry Buchanan, Carol Frazee, and Todd Donovan, and some amazing organizations like the Whatcom Democrats, United Food and Commercial Workers, International Association of Machinists, the Carpenters Union, and that breadth of those endorsements reflects my commitment to work broadly to win bold policies. And when you vote for me this election, you'll be voting for someone who has a track record of going to outside resources, employing outside expert legal review and policy experts to move things quick with the urgency that these very real crises demand, and doing so in a way that's deeply rooted in community. Thank you all again.
Thank you. So on behalf of the League of Women Voters, I want to thank all of you, the candidates, for being here tonight, but more importantly, for demonstrating your commitment to this incredible community that we live in by running for office. So thank you. Voters, to the audience out there, voters, you can find more information about the candidates online at 411.org and in your voter pamphlet. And also, please vote, because in this community, every vote makes a difference. Your ballots will be mailed October 18th. Your ballot must be postmarked or in a ballot drop box by 8 p.m. on November 7th. Please remember to sign the envelope, and if you're mailing by postal service, we recommend that you do that early. So thank you, and good night.